They told me they were keeping it tight this year. But my card paid for a 14-person villa, catering, and group excursions. I didn't say a word. I just hit dispute all, locked the travel account, and flagged the card. At the airport, security service held them back. My dad texted, "Our boarding passes are rejected." I replied, "Maybe try tightening the guest list." The next day, my dad's lawyer called me 15 times in a row. They told me they'd be saving money this year. That was their exact phrase. That was the lie they gave me, like it was some small, forgettable detail. 3 weeks later, my credit card got hit with a $4,039 charge from a luxury travel agency. 7 nights in Cancun. 14 guests. Group excursions. Private chef. Paid in full. I didn't call. I didn't scream. I didn't even ask why. I just sat down, opened my laptop, and calmly clicked dispute everything, flagged the card, locked my travel account, and turned off notifications. 15 minutes later, I got a text from my father. "Our boarding passes have been rejected. We're being held up by airport security." What the hell is going on? I replied, "Maybe try shortening the guest list." And that was it. But if you want to understand how we got here, you have to understand what kind of people they are, and what kind of idiot I've been. A month earlier, I got a promotion at work. It wasn't CEO level money, but it came with a title bump and a pretty generous raise. I'd kept it quiet until my cousin Rebecca's birthday party. I only mentioned it when my uncle asked how things were going. By dessert, the whole family knew. And not just knew, they had ideas. My mom pulled me aside and said how proud she was, how I'd really made it. My dad slapped me on the back and asked if I was finally ready to contribute more. I knew where it was heading, so I shut it down. I told them I wouldn't be joining the family vacation this summer. I needed time to recharge, maybe travel alone. My mom smiled and said, "That's okay, we'll be saving money this year anyway." That sentence stuck with me. The tone of it. The weird finality. Turns out, they meant they'd be saving their money. Not mine. 3 days after the party, I got hit with that $4,000 charge. Then a second one. Meals. Villa amenities. A snorkeling tour for 14. I pulled up the itinerary and saw every last detail. Dates, names, reservations. Not one thing included me. That's when it clicked. During the party, I'd left my wallet on the kitchen counter while helping clean up. They didn't steal the card. They memorized the number. Took photos. Waited a few days. Then they went on a shopping spree, assuming I wouldn't notice until it was too late. They assumed wrong. I nuked everything from orbit, disputed the charges, locked the account, canceled the bookings, changed my passwords. I even contacted the villa directly and warned them about potential fraud. They were surprisingly helpful, considering. What happened next was delicious. I guess they were already at the airport when the cancellation hit. I can just imagine them walking up to the desk with sunglasses and straw hats, trying to act like royalty, only to be told their tickets didn't exist anymore. I got my dad's text when they were already being pulled aside by airport security. That's when I sent my reply, "Maybe try shortening the guest list." I turned my phone off and went to bed early that night. Slept like a stone. The next morning, I woke up to 15 missed calls. All from the same number. My father's lawyer. I didn't call back. Not right away. I knew exactly what this was about. See, 3 years ago, my dad had given me his old car after he bought a new one. It wasn't some grand gesture. He was going to trade it in but figured I could use it more than the dealership would. Now, suddenly, it was being reclassified as a loan. When I finally answered, the lawyer didn't waste time. He said my father was seeking the return of the vehicle, citing lack of familial reciprocity and a breakdown of trust. I could almost hear my dad dictating it word for word from across the room. I said fine. They could have the car. I'd leave the keys on the porch. Because I was done. No more guilt. No more manipulation. No more pretending. But this wasn't the end. They thought they'd won something that day. They had no idea. The real vacation was just beginning. I dropped the car off that evening. Didn't even wait for anyone to come out of the house. Just parked it at the curb, locked the doors, left the keys in the mailbox, and walked away. I didn't owe them explanations, and honestly, I didn't care if they thought they'd gotten even. 2 days later, I got a message from my sister, Courtney. Seriously? You're giving away the car just to be dramatic? Grow up. I didn't reply. She was one of the names on the guest list, right there in the travel itinerary between Rebecca, double room, and Uncle Jeff, ocean view. She knew exactly what they were doing. The funny thing is, I almost respected the move. It was bold. Brazen. It just wasn't smart. They assumed I'd be too passive, too soft, too eager to keep the peace. What they didn't count on was me finally getting tired. I kept waiting for things to escalate, and sure enough, they did, but not the way I expected. 2 weeks after the vacation that never happened, I got a call from a friend of mine who works at a local credit union. He told me, very casually, that my father had just tried to take out a personal loan. Apparently, his business, which I use the term loosely for, had taken a hit. The loan was denied because his credit had dipped under 600. 3 days after that, my cousin Rebecca's Instagram went dark. She usually posts daily, so I checked her Facebook out of curiosity. Her engagement had been postponed, which, if you know her, means cancelled. I wasn't celebrating yet, but I watched. My Aunt Melissa, one of the loudest voices during the whole "Thomas is being selfish" talk after the airport debacle, had been living rent-free in one of my grandfather's old duplexes. Guess who got a notice of eviction from the bank? That's right. My dad had used it as collateral on a business loan 2 years ago and never told her. Now she was crashing on Courtney's couch. The ripple effect was beginning. All without me lifting a finger. But I wasn't done. They thought karma had shown up early. What they didn't know was that I'd been planning something much more precise. Because if they were going to treat me like an outsider, I was going to show them what it really meant to be cut off. And the first move was already in play. Remember that car they wanted so badly? The one they reclaimed from me with legal backup? It was uninsured. And it was about to cost them way more than they bargained for. A week after I gave them the car, I got an email from the DMV. It started out normal, generic header, no urgency, but the second I opened it, I felt it coming. A traffic violation. 30 miles over the speed limit. Residential zone. Automatic camera. The photo attached was grainy, but there was no mistaking it. My dad behind the wheel. Same gray hoodie he always wears, face dead center. It was addressed to me, of course. Because they never changed the title. The registration was still in my name. I checked the date. 3 days after I left the car in their driveway. I went back through my emails and found the cancellation notice from my insurance company. I'd pulled the policy the same night I dropped the keys off. I'd wanted it to be clean. Done. But now it was something better, leverage. I contacted the DMV, filed a statement of non-ownership with all the backup, the lawyer's email, the texts, the timeline. I even attached the Facebook messages from Courtney mocking me for giving the car away. Within 48 hours, the ticket was reassigned. And with no proof of insurance on file, the DMV added a flag to the car's license plate. I didn't even have to make a call. It was now marked for impound if seen on the road. But this was just fallout. I still hadn't made a single intentional move. Yet. 3 nights later, my mother broke the silence. Not with a call. Not even a private message. A comment on a beach photo I posted, the first I'd uploaded since this all started. Just a quiet, simple picture of the ocean. She wrote, "I hope you're enjoying yourself while your family's falling apart." Like it was supposed to make me feel guilty. But I didn't feel guilty. I felt nothing. My dad made his move next. Not a phone call. He never does anything directly when he thinks he can manipulate a situation quietly. A friend of mine from work, Josh, texted me with a screenshot. Someone had messaged him on LinkedIn pretending to be a recruiter. Asking questions about me. Trying to dig. It didn't take much to connect the dots. The grammar. The phrasing. The dumb email handle. It was him. He was trying to poison the well. Subtle. Desperate. Josh replied, pretending not to notice. Played along. Then CC'd me in a reply that ended with, "This kind of behavior is exactly why I never mix family and business." They were flailing. And that's when I finally decided to start. I'd been keeping a list for years. Not just of wrongs, those were easy to remember, but of leverage. Quiet things. Little things. Details they gave me thinking I'd never use them. And sitting near the top of that list was Uncle Jeff. 3 years ago, he called me in a panic. His wife had left him for a guy she met online, and she'd done it right after draining their joint account. He had a DUI pending, a credit card maxed out, and an old gambling debt he'd hidden from everyone. He didn't want anyone to know. He asked me for $2,000 to cover his rent, and told me he'd pay me back within 3 months. He never did. What he didn't know was that I kept everything. The Venmo receipts. The texts where he promised to pay me back by June. The email thread where he accidentally admitted the money wasn't for rent. It was to pay off someone named Lenny, before they showed up at his job. I found Lenny, by the way. He runs a shady pawn shop 2 towns over. Still in business. So I made a phone call. Not to Lenny. Not to Jeff. To his HR department. An anonymous call. Just a voice telling them they should run a background check again. Something about a DUI that might not have shown up the first time. Something about a false address on his job application. By the end of the week, Uncle Jeff was on administrative leave. My mom posted a cryptic Bible verse that night. Do not be deceived, God is not mocked, for whatever one sows, that will he also reap. For once, I agreed with her. And I was just getting started. The next crack came from Courtney. She'd been riding high ever since she convinced our dad to co-sign her lease last year. Luxury apartment, downtown skyline view, infinity pool, and a rent way above what she could actually afford. She worked part-time at a boutique salon and supplemented the rest with influencer work, which mostly meant posting curated pictures of coffee and pretending to be sponsored. I knew she was barely holding it together. I also knew our dad had used his credit to push the lease through, despite already juggling debt from one of his failing ventures. So I checked something. There it was. A court filing. Notice of civil litigation. Past due rent 3 months. The apartment management company had filed against both her and my dad. That's when I made another call. Not to the building. Not to Courtney. To the collections agency that had flagged my credit 2 years ago when she missed a payment on a phone plan I once co-signed back in college. I had screenshots from that fiasco too. I sent them an anonymous tip that Courtney might be hiding income through cash apps and gifts from digital sponsorships, despite claiming no income on her debt relief application. All public, all verifiable. I even attached a few screenshots of her bragging about getting free money from brands. She got served a week later. The notice came while she was live on Instagram doing a Q&A. I saw it because someone screen recorded it and sent it to me. The moment her face dropped, mid-lip gloss, as a man off camera handed her a manila envelope. She didn't finish the live. The next day, my father texted me. Not to apologize. Not to ask how I was doing. He just sent 3 words. This is war. I didn't reply. But I did make sure he'd get a call from a local reporter I used to know. She owed me a favor from back when I helped her get a lead on a tax fraud case years ago. I gave her a tip. Look into local small business grants issued to people who never delivered what they promised. Guess whose name came up? My father's consulting firm had taken a $12,000 relief check during the pandemic to digitally expand his business. No website. No online presence. No taxes filed for the year. Nothing. The article dropped 2 days later, short but sharp. His name was right there. It didn't say guilty, but it didn't need to. The comments under the post were brutal. And then the calls stopped. No more lawyer. No more missed calls. No more text messages pretending I'd misunderstood what family meant. But I wasn't satisfied. Not yet. Because they still thought this was about a canceled vacation. A car. A few $1,000s. They didn't understand that they'd stolen something else entirely. They took peace. Trust. Time. And now they'd get all of it back piece by piece. But not the way they wanted. The silence held for 6 days. No texts. No calls. No snide public posts. The quiet was eerie. But I knew them. They weren't defeated, they were regrouping. Waiting for something they could twist into another reason to make me the villain. Then something unexpected happened. I got a letter in the mail. Real paper. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. Inside was a single sheet. I didn't know what they did until after. I'm sorry. I'm not like them. No signature. But I knew the handwriting. My cousin Leah. She was always the quiet one. Kept to herself, never jumped in when the family ganged up on someone. I hadn't thought about her during all this. She hadn't been on the trip list, and she rarely showed up to the bigger family events. I considered reaching out, but I didn't. Not yet. Because 3 hours after I got that letter, I got a call from my dad's lawyer again. I let it go to voicemail. Same number, same robotic tone. But this time, the message was different. Thomas, we've received notice of an inheritance transfer pending your signature. It seems your grandfather left you the duplex. My grandfather had passed away a year earlier. Everyone assumed the duplex would go to Aunt Melissa. She'd been living in it for years, rent-free, as a sort of unspoken deal. But apparently she never checked the updated will. I had. He changed it 6 months before he died. Quietly. Left the duplex to me because I was the only one in the family who ever helped him with his hospital visits, who showed up without asking for something. I called the lawyer back. Confirmed it. Got the documents. Melissa had no idea. 2 days later, I posted a listing. 2-bedroom duplex, newly inherited, available for rental. Priority given to quiet tenants. Melissa found out the next morning. Courtney sent me a voice message. Screeching. She accused me of trying to make their mother homeless. I didn't reply. Melissa had never paid rent in that place. She trashed it, painted over original hardwood, and left garbage in the backyard like she didn't think anyone would ever hold her accountable. And now she was being held accountable. But the biggest twist was still coming. 3 days after the listing went live, I got an email from a guy named Brian Keller. Said he was interested in the duplex. Wanted to meet. I googled him, out of habit. Turns out, he was a CPA, used to work for the IRS, now freelanced as a tax investigator. He didn't want to rent the place. He wanted to talk. We met at a diner off the highway. He brought a thick folder. And what he told me knocked the breath out of my lungs. He'd been investigating my father. Apparently, someone had anonymously flagged his consulting business after that small news article. Brian had followed the money and found inconsistencies. Misreported income, fake 1099s, phantom employees. Then he leaned in and said, "Do you know anything about a trust fund tied to your name that was emptied in 2019? I didn't. Turns out, my grandfather had left me a small trust when I turned 18, nothing life-changing, but about $25,000. It was supposed to be held until I turned 25. Which never happened. Because in 2019, it was quietly closed. By my father using forged paperwork. Brian handed me the documents. Copies of signatures, timelines, transaction logs. It was real. All this time, I thought the worst thing they'd done was steal a vacation. I was wrong. They'd stolen years from me. Now I wasn't just playing chess anymore. I was lighting the board on fire. I left the diner in silence, the folder still sitting on the passenger seat like a loaded weapon. I drove without music. No podcasts. Just the sound of my own breathing and tires over asphalt. Every few minutes, I'd glance at the folder, half expecting it to burst into flames. Brian had laid it out clearly. In 2019, my father had accessed the trust fund left by my grandfather. $25,000. Meant for me. It had been transferred, closed, and erased. With forged documents. Signatures that weren't mine. Records showing money withdrawn in pieces, funneled through an account tied to my dad's business. While I was working night shifts and skipping meals, there had been a safety net I never knew existed, one he cut out from under me before I ever had the chance to use it. He didn't just steal money. He stole years of struggle I didn't need to live through. And now I couldn't unsee it. Back at my place, I didn't turn on the lights. Just sat in the dark, phone in one hand, the folder in the other. My inbox had 3 new emails, all from the property listing for the duplex. All serious renters. Real people. I wasn't sure why, but I hesitated. For the first time in weeks I paused. Not because I doubted what I was doing, but because the weight of it was finally setting in. Everything had shifted. The casual revenge, the petty power moves. This wasn't petty anymore. This was war, and the stakes had just changed. I got up, pulled the deed paperwork from my drawer, and filed the final ownership change myself. I wanted no delays. I wanted it official. The duplex was mine now, legally and completely. And they were going to feel that. Because I wasn't renting it to strangers anymore. I had other plans for that house. I had one of those whiteboards with a calendar grid, left over from a project at work. I wiped it clean and started writing names, dates, connections. My dad, Courtney, Aunt Melissa, Uncle Jeff. Debts, secrets, leverage. Notes from Brian's folder. Each corner of the board filled up quickly. Then I circled one name I hadn't focused on before. Leah. My cousin who'd sent that anonymous letter. The only one who'd broken ranks. I hadn't replied to her, hadn't acknowledged it at all, but something about her timing, it didn't feel like guilt. It felt like something else. Maybe she knew more. Maybe she was trying to distance herself before things exploded. At 1:13 a.m., I got a message. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. And one single image. It was the duplex. Nighttime. Taken from a car, maybe. The front porch dimly lit, the for rent sign still up. No message. No context. Just the photo. I stared at it, unmoving. Then another message came through. No words again. Just a screenshot. A bank transfer. 5 figures. An account number that started with the same 4 digits from the trust Brian had shown me. A withdrawal. May 2019. Someone was watching. And they wanted me to know it. I tried calling the number. Straight to voicemail. No ID. I didn't sleep that night. Because now I knew I wasn't the only one digging through the past. I wasn't the only one who had something to lose. And someone, somewhere, was trying to warn me, or threaten me. Or both. I'll be back with what happened next. I need to put it down, make sense of it. Because what unraveled after that photo changed everything. But for now, that's all. Final update. It's been 4 months since that last message. The one with the photo of the duplex and the screenshot of the 2019 bank transfer. I never figured out who sent it. The number disconnected a week later. I tried tracing it through a friend who works in IT security. Burner phone, no history, nothing attached. But it didn't matter. Because by then, the rest had already started falling apart. About a week after that night, I got an email from Brian again. He didn't say much, just sent over one document. It was the final draft of his report, marked complete. He had submitted it to the IRS and a few other relevant agencies. A quiet, thorough investigation. Tax fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, and false documentation. All of it tied to my father. He added one sentence in the email. You won't need to press charges. They're already moving. 3 days later, my dad's business website went offline. His number was disconnected. And then the lawyer, the one who'd left me all those voicemails, quit. Apparently, my father hadn't paid him in 2 months. Courtney was evicted not long after. Last I heard, she was back at my parents' place, which had a foreclosure sign sitting in the yard by mid-May. Aunt Melissa messaged me once. Not to scream or threaten. Just a quiet. I didn't know it would go this far. I didn't reply. And Uncle Jeff? He lost his job officially. Policy violation was the public term. But it wasn't hard to piece together what happened. I never rented the duplex. I decided not to. Instead, I cleaned it out, had the locks changed, painted every room, and kept it empty. Sometimes I sit on the porch in the evenings and just listen to the wind blow through that quiet, residential street. Peace has a sound. And this is what it sounds like. As for the trust fund, Brian confirmed the IRS will be pursuing repayment. I'll probably never see the full $25,000 again, but that's fine. It's not about the money anymore. It hasn't been for a while. The truth is, I didn't destroy them. They did it to themselves. I just stopped shielding them from the consequences. And Leah? She wrote again. This time she signed it. Told me she'd left the family group chat, cut off contact, started therapy. Said watching what happened made her realize how deep the dysfunction ran. She ended her letter with, You were the only one who walked away and didn't come back. I'm trying to do that now too. I haven't replied yet. But I will. Because I'm not angry anymore. I'm not plotting or waiting or reliving it in my head. It's over.